And here's how I did it. I said, all right, so you've got a day job in Waterdeep. And you've always dreamed of being an adventurer. So you're going through your day. And unbeknownst to you, of course, you receive this summons. And dependent upon where you are in Waterdeep and what you were doing is sort of how the summons was delivered to you. But it was a summons from the Church of Selûne, which is the one of the big kind of main religions within Waterdeep. And it was an invitation to meet at the chapel. And, you didn't know much more beyond that, but the fact that you got this invitation was enough to sort of pique your interest. And so all four of the player characters got an invitation like this to show up at a certain time at the chapel. And at that point, they arrive kind of in midday, beautiful sunny day in Waterdeep. And there's the four of them and then about 20 other commoners who've showed up. And what I told my actual players stepping out of the game was be prepared to tell of a good deed that you had done. Also some background rules. Everybody had to be some form of good on the scale, or on the, I guess not really the scale, but in the matrix of archetypes, you had to be either lawful, neutral, or chaotic good, no evil archetypes, for the purposes of the story, because you have been selected because of your goodness. And taking a big step back, everyone has been invited because they have been under surveillance by members of the church, sort of surreptitiously watching them and talking to people and interviewing, almost like a background investigation. And, word had traveled back that these were good common folk with good hearts who had done a good deed. And then everyone has to tell their good deed, and that sort of gets the players talking and interacting, because no one in this sort of adventure start knows each other. It's not the classic trope that you're all sitting in a tavern and you all know each other. No one knows each other. And so they start to get to know each other through these good deeds that are told. And each of the four player characters brought some really interesting, unique stories and backgrounds already to the table. One is kind of a homeless scavenger who lives on the fringes of Waterdeep, an outcast, if you will. One is a sort of a cog in the wheel of the Waterdeep, machine of guards, and just kind of going through the motions of being a member of the guard, and nothing special. One was a sailor working out of the dock wards, and just was always wanted to be more learned and read and bookish and stuff, and kind of migrated towards wanting to become a wizard. And then one is kind of a drow elf who does not fit with his kinsmen in the Underdark, but wants to live in the light and as much as practical, but has a very good streak and kind of struggles with fitting in and getting along with the townspeople because of his background. So really cool, really rich already, right out of the gate. And so that was already really exciting. And so they all were called in, and the grand, kind of priestess, the high priestess of the temple at this time, and I just literally went to a name generator and came up with names, Shazo Downwalker was her name. She's kind of running the interviews. Everybody kind of quote interviews. Everybody does their story. All but 6 are dismissed, so it's the 4 player characters and 2 other NPCs that I kind of created. And as she starts to explain the quest, and the quest is essentially, there's been a prophecy. The prophecy has been derived through much prayer and contemplation. And this is her telling the player characters. And the prophecy has said that, there's a great need for intervention. And layering with the prophecy is this sense of doom that has been picked up by the clerics at the church, right? This sense of impending doom, this, think of maybe like Never-Ending Story, or as this existential threat that's sort of, or maybe even Lord of the Rings, right? This great darkness in the east, and they don't know what it is. The priests don't know what it is. No one knows what it is, but it's there and it's rising, and they can't put their finger on it, but they know that if they dovetail this sensation that the higher priests are picking up on, the clerics, they dovetail that with this prophecy that is sort of manifested over, kind of been passed around, and it kind of starts to fit together like a puzzle piece. They determine that essentially there needs to be 4 commoners selected from the populace who are good of heart, and they must be sent to battle this impending evil, to be determined what that evil is. And that's basically what Shaizo offers the player characters. And she offers them a ridiculous amount of gold if they take this quest. I mean, it's massive. So it's life-changing. They're going to sponsor these commoners' transitions from peasant to adventurer. And not only that, they'll throw in titles to castles and all this other stuff. So there's the super enticing offer. And so that's kind of how the whole thing gets started. That's what brings them together, but they're still level 0. They are not adventurers yet. They have to decide if they're going to take the quest. Of course, they do, as a part of the story. And as they're talking, as they're sort of getting this information, and as they, even rewind a little bit, as they start to arrive at the temple, only the 4, their ears start to ring. And it's perplexing. Obviously, they're not communicating with each other, but individually, each of them starts to get this ringing in their ears, which is kind of inexplicable. And as they get further into the temple, the ringing gets louder, and they're almost a little uncomfortable. And so after everyone else gets dismissed, the ringing gets louder. One of the other NPCs, so there's 4 player characters and the 2 NPCs, one of them says, "I don't hear anything," and the other one says, "I can definitely hear it." You don't know if you can or can't. And then right in the middle of the discussion, you hear footsteps, boom, in from one of the back areas of the church comes busting in a young cleric. "My ears," his ears are ringing like off, "and I found the source," and he comes flying in, he trips and slides, he kind of does a Superman and releases what was in his hands, which is this kind of I visualize almost like a big seed pod, wooden kind of a wooden case, narrow, long, but no hard edges, and it slides across the floor right to the feet of Shaizo Downwalker. And she's the cleric. She picks up the case, and she can't hear any ringing. Now the ringing in your ears is super loud, and the young cleric who comes busting in, a cleric by the name of Arbor Crestcreek, his ears are ringing, but no one else seems to be able to hear it. There's the other NPC who says that he can hear it. And Shaizo's like, "Oh, I can open this," and she does some spell, and the magic kind of flows around it, and then it just pops like a bubble, and this glowing ether just splatters over everyone and then dissipates almost instantly. Nothing. The ring doesn't stop. Nothing opens. She has this real puzzled look on her face. She's a really powerful cleric. She can't open it. So one of my player characters says, "May I have a look?" And as soon as he touches it, a hinge appears and some writing on the bottom. which was not there before. The hinge, it just opens. And then within the case are these coin rings. Each coin has the symbol of Selyun, the goddess, and you guys can look it up. I can maybe show a picture of it, what that looks like. And each ring does something different. And this is one of the things where I kind of messed up as DM, which was okay because I don't think anyone was taking that close of notes about what each ring did, because they're level 0 transitioning to level 1, and they're going to already have some encounters. I wanted to give them a little bit of a something, nothing too crazy. Like one was kind of a ring for a pugilist that gives him some plus damage to his unarmed strike. One gets kind of uncanny dodge, one gets danger sense, and one's actually a ring that turns him invisible, but not like the invisibility spell. It's only once per day. And so I'm thinking that that'll lead to some interesting role play. And then there's 6 rings in there, so those are 4 for my player characters. The one who pretended to hear the ringing grabs one of the rings, and then Arbor Crestcreek, the cleric who heard it, gets the 6th one. And as soon as they get all the rings disseminated, the ringing stops. Everybody puts on their rings, it resizes. They kind of know what the rings do. Arbor's ring actually allows him to cast guidance at any time through almost like a sending spell. So that's a little boost for the player characters. They can dip into that power that Arbor has now with his ring to give themselves basically guidance, which gives them a D4 on an ability check, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so all of that happens. Then that's kind of the end of session 0.5. And they're well and truly progressed. They still have no armor. They still have no equipment. For taking the quest, the church gives them each a stipend of 50 gold pieces, which they can add to whatever gold they already might have had. And then this second session, they get to go shopping. The 6th NPC, a dwarf by the name of Groostruck Undergrip, he says, I don't want any part of it. I don't hear any ringing. I think maybe I was close, but this isn't for me. He's honest. He gets his ring. He gets no ring, sorry. He gets his gold pieces, not 50. They get, I think, 15 gold pieces just for showing up. And then the other NPC who grabbed the ring and says, I can hear it, and he throws the ring on, well, he loses his finger. That's the ring for the imposter. Nothing too crazy. Does lose a finger, that ring drops to the ground. He screams and runs out. And so then we got the 4 NPCs, and they are moving forward with the adventure. And then we sort of concluded, and that was the end of the first night. No battle, no combat. They're still commoners, but getting close. They still don't have any weapons. They don't have any armor. And that's how we wrapped it up.